we'll break with tradition and spare you my ponderings and my questions and go straight to the Mayor. Welcome.
Oh, good morning, James. It's good to be here on this quiet week and to spend time with you and, more importantly, your listeners taking their calls.
Well, let's crack on.
Well, so the first caller is from West Hampstead, and I'm hoping it's Scott. Good morning, Scott.
Hi. Hello, James. Hi, Sadiq.
Hey, Scott.
I disagree with President Trump's comments that you're doing a bad job as mayor. I think that you're doing a great job, and thank you on behalf of all the citizens of London. But are you happy with the Prime Minister's response to President Trump in your defence? Or should Sir Keir have gone even further to defend your record as mayor?
Well, Scott, thanks for your call. Look, firstly, can I just make this point? It is perfectly acceptable and it's fine, and that's the joy of a democracy, for people to have views on politicians. And, you know, President Trump is entitled to think I'm, in his words, a terrible mayor. We can discuss my record on various issues and you can reach your conclusion. What I think is wrong, and this is my comments about, this has been going on for years now, him sort of being obsessed by me and our city, him being obsessed by a variety of things. What I think is wrong for him to say, and I'm paraphrasing, that Sharia law is coming to London, because he's clearly linking the fact that I'm a Muslim and I'm proud of that, maybe my ethnic origin, with his views on those things by saying Sharia law's coming to London. I mean, just this week, Scott, I was wishing a Shana Tova to Jewish Londoners and those across the globe because it's Rosh Hashanah. We, a couple of weeks ago, celebrated Black on the Square every year on the 1st May in history to lead Pride in London, the protest. So there's no evidence to suggest that it is. And so that's why, you know, I called out President Trump. And I'm really pleased you saw yesterday, Scott, I'm not sure if you saw this, but Keir Starmer being quite clear in relation to his views on this matter. And my concern is this, Scott, there are a number of issues we can talk about flowing from the most powerful man in the world having these views. It normalises and mainstreams certain views. It gives oxygen to certain prejudices. And I think we should be, you know, bold, courageous, but also decent citizens and call him out.
Should the Prime Minister have moved a little quicker? I mean, it was the regional media round yesterday when he was asked about this and offered a response. He could have intervened autonomously, couldn't he?
Well, look, I mean, the fact is, the first opportunity he got, he said what he said
it wasn't
yesterday.
The first opportunity he got. He's the Prime Minister. He talks. We all pay attention.
Look, listen, Scott, James, I'm not in charge of the diary and what the Prime Minister says. What I'm quite clear about is what I say and what I believe. And I've been overwhelmed by the support from Londoners and those across the globe. And it's really important for us to call out wrong. The fact that the person saying the wrong is the most powerful man in the world shouldn't matter.
I mean, it's not quite as you described it, is it? Because, I mean, there are Sharia courts where people can go voluntarily for divorce-type proceedings, just as there are Beth Din for courts for the Jewish community, and other communities have their own sort of civil... That's
not what President Trump was talking about. Let's be quite clear.
Precisely, but he said you are bringing it in. You have brought it into 3 boroughs. A statistic that probably comes from a 2020 Facebook post which described it as Shakira law.
Yeah.
At least we can all agree that hips don't lie. But that was a very deliberate tactic. You have brought it in and you are bringing it in more. It wasn't just about Sharia is coming, which is often quite a provocative but ignorant claim. It was designed to portray you as wanting to force Londoners into some form of Islamist court.
Yes, and what it's done, by the way, an unintended consequence of that, or maybe an intended consequence, is there are many commentators and others who've jumped on this bandwagon and given the impression this is indeed the case, and there's a causation between me becoming the Mayor of London and this happening. And as you alluded to, this has been the case for decades in terms of those who are Orthodox Jewish followers, those who are Orthodox Muslim followers. When it comes to the issue, for example, of divorce or property, they use their own faith rules. I'm quite clear, I speak as a former lawyer, but also as the Mayor of London and a proud Brit. You know, English and Welsh law in London is supreme. But again, you're spot on. There is a reason why President Trump alluded to this and, cast aspersions about this great city of ours and myself. And Scott, the point is, I'm really happy to have a conversation and dialogue with President Trump about, which country has, inverted commas, better cities. I can compare crime rates in London versus New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, or foreign direct investment, or sports capital, cultural capital, tourist capital. Let's have that conversation and debate. That is a legitimate debate to have. But when you, time and time again, say and do stuff, you've got to start drawing the conclusion that President Trump is racist, sexist, misogynistic, and Islamophobic. And so, look, it's not about me, Scott. It's about those decent Muslims, those decent people who feel the consequences and bear the brunt of what President Trump says and does. And I'm afraid, James, you will see, as a consequence of what President Trump says and done, people being empowered to use bad language and behave badly against not just ethnic minorities, not just religious minorities, but in particular, because of the context, Muslims as well.
Is it true that more Americans are applying for to move to London than ever before?
So since records began, which goes back more than 20 years, a record number of Americans have applied for British citizenship. A record number of Americans have come to London over the course of the last year. And I'm really proud and they're welcome here. London is open.
Let's crack on. Thank you, Scott.
Scott, thanks for calling. Thank you for your generous words. I'm really grateful. The next caller is from Manchester, and it's Raj. Good morning, Raj.
Good morning, Sadiq. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm okay, thanks.
It's just a really simple question. Obviously, knife crime across the country is on the rise. I feel as though a quick deterrent would be to ban balaclavas altogether, because anytime I see anybody with a balaclava roaming around town or anything, you tend to be intimidated. But I think if anybody was carrying a knife or anything, didn't have a balaclava on, and the face was to be revealed, I think it'd be a quick deterrent to avoid them from carrying a knife.
Well, Raj, can I unpack that question? I'll come to balaclavas directly in a second, I promise you. But in relation to knife crime, in fact, in London, Raj, we've seen a huge reduction in the number of young people injured with a knife. And it's very important to say that because, again, mischief makers try and give the impression we're a lawless city. To give you an idea, the number of young people injured with a knife over the last 9 years has come down by more than 25%. That means, Raj, over the last 9 and a bit years, and you'll understand why I've mentioned 9 and a bit years, that's the length of my mayoralty, we have around 10,000 fewer victims of knife crime injuries. So it's really important to talk up the success in London. Now, there are some people who wear balaclava for good reasons. If you see a motorcyclist or somebody who rides a bike in winter, you can understand why they'd want to wear a balaclava to keep warm underneath the helmet. Other times, you're spot on, Raj. There is no justification or excuse to wear a balaclava. Why do you need to wear a balaclava when it's 25 degrees going to Notting Carnival? Why do you need to wear a balaclava when you go into a building site to withdraw money? And I think what is important is that we, challenge that sort of behaviour, but also recognise.
How do you challenge it? Because
I'll give you an example.
You can't go out and check the temperature before you tell someone to take their balaclava.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So if you're a building site or a bank, you have a note on the front door saying you're a balaclava, you can't come into this building site to your bank. When it's carnival and it's 25 degrees Celsius, the police will challenge you if you're in a balaclava because, as Raj has alluded to, the only reason you're in a balaclava when it's 25 degrees Celsius during carnival is to hide your identity, because you're up to no good. I think a blanket ban of balaclavas, Raj, is not something I subscribe to. I think it's one of the joys of living in a democracy. You can wear what you like, whether it's a balaclava, a hijab, a miniskirt, or whatever. But I think you're right. There are some times where it's clearly inappropriate.
We had a problem in my neck of the woods. I actually stumbled across it towards the end of the crime, where some kids had robbed a car in a hotel in Brentford and carried the bags to a bit of parkland and started rifling through the bags. I managed to reunite the bags with the owner, but the young people who scurried off as we approached were wearing balaclava helmets. I don't want to sort of go all Alan Partridge, but that is what Raj is talking about.
Oh, yeah, listen, Raj,
it's intimidating and it facilitates crime.
Yeah, listen, Raj, if the police see somebody wearing a balaclava, they will challenge them. Including making them withdraw it and so forth. I mean, obviously, in the example James has given, clearly those young people at night time in a car park in Brentford are up to no good, and so they should be challenged. I think just think about Raj enforcing a no balaclava rule in the winter months. Think about December, January, February, March. I've now rediscovered cycling. I don't wear balaclava, mind you, but I'd imagine if I start cycling in January, there may be a need to keep warm and stuff. So I think that blanket bans in general, in terms of this, I'm not sure would work. But I think the premise of your question is spot on.
I hate them.
There are too many people up to no good.
Everybody hates them, don't they? But I guess legislation is different from an emotional reaction. Raj, are you happy with that answer?
Yeah, that's perfectly fair.
Why are you phoning from Manchester? Because it's a nationwide question, I suppose, from your point of view.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
It's 14 minutes after.
It's colder up north there where balaclava's more,
Somebody think of the skiers, yes.
The next caller is nearer to home. It's King's Cross. And if this iPad is working, it should be Sidar. Good morning, Sidar.
Yeah. Hello. Hi there. I have voted for you in the past, but not last time. I wanted to check whether you intend to stand again for a fourth term, or will you do probably a Burnham and head to Parliament? Because I think I would love to see you as a foreign secretary greeting Trump on the next visit.
Well, Sidar, if I stand again, will you vote for me this time?
Sadiq, the reason I didn't vote for you was because of your lack of commitment on Palestine, and you didn't show up at any of the marches. I voted Green, and I think Labour still has a long way to go before they get a vote from people like me again.
So you're not keen on me because of my policies on Palestine, but you want me to be the Foreign Secretary? How does that work, Sidar?
I'm quite interested in seeing the dynamic between you and Trump.
You're a mischief maker, is that what it is? Look, let me be quite clear. I think, Sidar, James will disagree because he'll probably say he has. I got the best job in politics. There's no reason I'd give this job up for another job in politics, and I love what I'm doing. And Londoners have lent me their votes, not on one, not on two, but on 3 occasions. And, as long as I continue to feel I can deliver for this great city of ours, I'll carry on being the mayor.
That's a different position from the mayor of Manchester, isn't it?
Well, listen, he's a dear friend of mine, so, Andy said what he said. I've not spoken to Andy recently, so I can't really comment.
Of course you can. Do you approve or not approve of Andy Burnham making it public that MPs are, according to him, wanting him to mount some sort of leadership challenge to Keir Starmer?
I think Andy's raising legitimate concerns he has, and he's entitled to do so.
Well, he's doing a lot more than that. He's manoeuvring.
Well, listen, that's your characterisation of what Andy Burnham's doing.
What's yours then? When he says MPs have asked me to run against Keir Starmer, and I'm effectively saying I'm thinking about it.
Well, I think we've got 400 MPs, so it's it won't be a surprise to anybody that there may be a small minority not happy with the leadership. I'm quite clear. I'm going to conference next week, and the joy of conference when Labour is in government far outweighs, any concerns people may have. But, so to answer your question directly, I've no intentions of leaving this job for another job in politics.
And will you run again then?
That's my intention. Yeah, listen. If you remember this,
everyone keeps telling me you're not going to.
It's Sidar wants me to.
Taxi driver told me you're not going.
Well, listen. Apparently, let's not go into taxi drivers and what people believe when taxi drivers give them advice and stuff.
But you are, as it stands now, you're planning to run for a fourth term.
Oh, look, I've given no indication that I'm not, so I'm not sure why people are drawing that conclusion. If you remember, because you and I discussed it regularly, at this stage last time. I'd not declared one way or the other, so I'm not quite clear why people are suddenly drawing conclusions because I've not declared this time.
And Sidar is not alone, is he? Being alienated from the Labour Party by the either the stance or the slowness on the issue of Gaza. What is your current position?
Well, look. Every day you wake up, you see another child killed. You see record numbers of children maimed. You see man-made, malnutrition and starvation taking place. You see mass killing. You see collective punishment. And so, the ICJ were quite clear in relation to their judgment, the interim judgment, about there being plausible genocide. Since the last time I was on this show, a UN commissioner has, drawn the conclusion there is genocide. So I'm quite clear what's happening in Gaza is genocide. I think it's really important that those countries who've got influence over Netanyahu use their influence. And, it's really important that we not just lobby the British government, but actually, the British government should be lobbying President Trump to use his influence over Netanyahu, who is in America as we speak, to say, stop this killing. There will not be a two-state solution. You can recognise Palestine, but it's not going to happen if Gaza no longer exists and there aren't Palestinian people there. I'll give you an example of the outrage. The population of Manchester is, roughly speaking, 2 million. 2.1 million people have been displaced from Gaza. So more people displaced from Gaza than the population of Manchester or Leeds or Newcastle. And that's a consequence of Netanyahu's policies.
And what do you say to Sidar when he says, Labour will have to work hard to win back my vote on this specific issue?
Well, I think Sidar's articulating what a number of people feel across the country. And by the way, this is not a Muslim issue. Lots of people feel this way. This is not an anti-Israel issue or an anti-Jewish issue. Please, as soon as I end this, there'll be people accusing me of being anti-Semitic. I think it's possible to be pro-Israel and be against what Netanyahu is doing. In fact, many people from the Jewish faith feel that way.
Sidar, thank you. Thanks, carry on.
The next caller is also from London, and it's Simon from Wembley. Good morning, Simon.
Hi, good morning, Sadiq. Thank you for doing an amazing job in London.
Bless you, thank you.
I just had a quick question. What measures do you have in place to help improve and make streets cleaner in London? And what I mean specifically is, unfortunately, when I go to certain parts of London, it looks very nice, it's very well kept, very clean. But when you go to other parts of London, it's just not to the same standard. And I happen to live in one of those places, and unfortunately, where I live, the income of people who live there aren't as high as other places in London, which creates that social inequality. So what is it that you're doing to make sure that all of London, has the same standards, and whether that means educating people in these neighbourhoods on how to keep areas more cleaner, looking after the parks more. And, for example, my local park, if I go in there, it feels like the branches haven't been cut for more than a year. When I'm walking on my street every single morning, there is a huge fly tipping issue, which I've raised with my local council many times, who's never, managed to do anything about it. So I just wanted to find out, what do you have in place to help, make all of London beautiful? Because London is a very beautiful city and it deserves to shine. And that's my question.
No, Simon, thanks for your question. Actually, Simon, your question goes to the core of the joys of living in London and the pleasures and displeasures. It's a quality of life issue, and actually it's one of the most important issues that I think politicians should be grappling with. And there's a great saying from a Democratic politician: all politics is local. So I'm really pleased you raised the call. So let me explain to you the way it works, and then I'll explain to you what we're doing about it. So the way it works is that our 32 boroughs, as you've alluded to, Simon, are responsible for their own areas. And the 32 boroughs raise their money from two sources to spend. One is central government and one is council tax. And over the last 15 years, they've seen a massive reduction in the money they get from central government. And so they can spend less money on things like street cleaning and refuse collection. And a lot of their money is going on temporary accommodation, children's services and residential older people's care. And that's meant that some areas get less love than other areas. But you're right. There should be a sense of pride in our communities. There should be a sense of pride in not dropping litter. And that's made easier by, you're right, public education, but also making it easier by having things like bins around, by making sure that, parks are well maintained so people look after those parks. Streets are clean so they stay clean. And all the evidence is, Simon, if you, for example, allow fly tipping to occur, it will exacerbate and get worse. If you have notices up and prosecutions and stop fly tipping in the first place, that area will stay clean. And I think us citizens have a role to play as well in supporting councils and supporting our communities. So where I live, in Tooting, we've got great residents who support the council by doing litter picking, going around the common, making sure it's clean and well maintained. But you're right, councils have a role to play. What I'm doing as mayor is a number of things: supporting councils to make sure they've got good refuse collection policies, good street cleaning policies, helping them in relation to enforcement and prosecution, but also things like making our places nicer by improving and extending green spaces, having water fountains, making sure things like Oxford Street are pedestrianised, and Oxford Street last Sunday was pedestrianised, and it was clean, it was beautiful, and we're going to have more of our city that way. But this question you've raised is really important, Simon, because it goes to the quality of life. That's why we're working with councils to address that. And by the way, next May are council elections, and I suspect residents across the country, as well as London, will be rewarding or punishing good councils and bad councils.
Where were you during the tube strike?
I was in City Hall or Union Street or other parts of
Why didn't we
London.
hear more from you?
I couldn't have been seen and heard more. I was out and about on Black on the Square on the Saturday, Sunday doing
Eddie
media.
Dempsey was concerned that you weren't visible enough.
Well, listen, I mean,
General Secretary
that's
of
for
RMT.
the General Secretary for the RMT he's entitled to have his views and stuff. I was out and about, and I'll carry on being out and about. I mean, I was teasing a journalist who asked me that question during the strike, and the point I made to him is he should be out and about with me in my visits and stuff and asking the questions. It's not my fault that journalists aren't following me around when I do my visits and stuff, but it's a matter of record. My views on industrial action. I'm really pleased, by the way, that RMT are talking to TfL, and let's hope they can resolve these differences.
Let me just play you a little clip of him on this programme last month.
Sure.
We're seeing a different approach to transport in London than we are nationally, and we're wondering what's going on. And to be blunt with it, I think the permanent bureaucracy in TfL, the commissioners, I think they're running the show. I don't think Sadiq Khan wants to be in this place. I think he wants to do different things in London, and I think he's being held back by the commissioners and the permanent management in TfL. And we went through the Fit for Future stations reorganisation with London Underground a few years ago. We've got 2,000 less people delivering the tube than we had then.
Who's in charge?
Look, I'm not going to personalise this between the Commissioner, between the GenSec of RMT or others. I'm the chairman of TfL. I'm quite clear about, though, having skilled negotiators at TfL, as indeed the RMT have skilled negotiators. They're not being undermined. Let's try and reduce tensions rather than inflaming them. And that's why I'm really pleased RMT are talking to TfL, and fingers crossed they'll resolve this amicably.
Are we going to have another strike, do you think?
I hope not.
We all hope not, but you must know a little bit more than the average punter.
Some people don't hope. Some people hope there are strikes because it leads to all sorts of challenges, and it means you can talk down and bash trade unions. I'm pro trade unions, so, and I'm pro there being fewer strikes, and that's why I'm really pleased that the trade unions are talking to TfL and they'll resolve this.
26 minutes after 10 is the time. Let me just read you a text. James, it's directed at me, but it's about you. James, you're utterly predictable. First caller is a fawning fan of this odious, racist little man. Then the sycophants continue to follow, writes Rob, who is, of course, welcome to ring in. Are you actually going to take calls from people who see him for how bad he is, call out his racism, his misogyny when facing questions from women, him filling London with immigrants in order to secure his re-elections, and his total blindness to Londoners wanting to reclaim and maintain their own heritage? Get some balance, he writes. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm going to play a little clip that was of Elon Musk, the owner of X, speaking via video link at the march that was organised by Stephen Yaxley Lennon recently. And then I'd ask you to address both points.
If you want to know what's going to happen to your town or village, just visit London, and you'll see that it's filled with crime. It often doesn't feel like Britain at all, and it's only a matter of time before that is what happens to your town or village. It starts in London, but it will spread to every town or village in the country, and no one will have any peace.
And this from Adam. I listen with incredulity to all the stuff from the United States about how unsafe London is. Last Saturday, I went to watch West Ham. I walked from King's Cross to Shoreditch, had my breakfast, then walked to Bethnal Green. It was absolutely lovely. What a city. I was and felt completely safe. What's going on? And I presume that Rob, who sent that message, is British. I doubt he's in London or has been in London recently. But what is going on?
Well, Rob, if you're from London, I'll put you down as undecided for the next mayoral election. But let me deal with both Rob and also the point made by Elon Musk. Let me deal directly with all the points that have been made. Firstly, let me deal with the issue of the protest a couple of weeks ago that Elon Musk spoke at. Now, I think it's not racist to be concerned about unlawful immigration. I don't think it's racist to be concerned about the small boats coming from France. I do not think it's racist to be concerned about the pace of migration. The protest organised two Saturdays ago in London was organised by the far right. The person who organised the march, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, is a violent racist who has been convicted on many, many occasions. At that protest, in addition to Elon Musk, who also used the phrase, which you didn't play, fight back or die,
Yes.
there were racists from France, far-right racists from Belgium, far-right racists from the Netherlands, far-right racists from Spain speaking, and Elon Musk is an American, South Africans. It seems the far-right don't mind foreigners coming here and speaking when they're white. But you imagine if those foreigners had been a different colour skin or had been a different religion coming to a protest, what these guys would have said. And to deal directly with the point about, London crime and London being a lawless city, and Elon Musk is now an American, the homicide rate in London, so the murders in London, 17 times lower than Chicago. The homicide rate in London, 6 times lower than Los Angeles. The homicide rate in London, 4 times lower than New York. The homicide rate in London is lower than Paris, Madrid, Brussels, and other cities across Europe. And I can deal with the issue of crime in London. One homicide is one homicide too many. And we're making huge progress dealing with those issues. But I'm not going to apologise or walk away from my joy in our diversity. It's a source of pride to me. And it makes us stronger, not weaker, richer, not poorer. And we've got to take on these people because, let me say this, what they hate about London is we're successful.
Is this
we're
what you think the motivation
and we're
is?
diverse. Look, we are a case study in the joys of diversity. That's one of the reasons they hate us. Why has the poster boy for the far right, President Trump, challenged London, taken on London, always casted aspersions on our great city? Because we're proof that diversity works. We're proof that you can be a successful, great city and be led by a minority and be led by somebody of Islamic faith. And they hate that. And that's one of the reasons why, the silent majority are getting more and more articulate. Because what's happened over the last 10 years, James, is, there's words like politically correct. There's words like snowflake. There's words like woke used against progressives to try and cower us and silence us. And I think when that happens, and we're not on the pitch having the argument and the debate, that allows people who aren't racist, they're not racist at all, but to think these people speak for them. But these people aren't addressing their concerns. They're playing on their fears, playing on their concerns.
So, I mean, we sometimes overthink this stuff on our phone-ins, and sometimes the answer is quite straightforward. You're saying that from Trump or from Musk, what we're hearing when they disparage London is pure racism.
It's code. Sometimes it's code. Sometimes it's overt. Sometimes it's covert. But let's be quite clear what the objective is. Their thesis is integration doesn't work. Their thesis is you can't be a Muslim and a Westerner. You can't be a Muslim and an American. You can't be a Muslim and British. Their thesis is that, people of different colours, different backgrounds shouldn't mix. And, London is proof point that they're wrong.
32 minutes after 10 is the time. And as if to prove your point, Sarah has texted, we are swamped with brown faces. We do not want any more immigrants. They need to go home. People like Sarah, empowered.
Well, I say this respectfully to Sarah. And I'm being respectful, Sarah, so please take it in the spirit it's meant. I was born in Tooting. Where am I going to go to? I mean, honestly, where am I going to go to? And I still live in Tooting. And, I've worked my entire life, not just public service, but in the private sector. I've paid taxes my entire life. I contribute, I hope, by being a public servant. I want to give back to this great city because I recognise with humility that this city gave me and my family everything, the chance to fulfil our potential. And what we did in return was work hard, Sarah. I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to take away from this society. I'm trying to give back. And I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm really sorry you feel that way. But, there may be small examples. Yeah, some people abusing the system, and they may be brown. But I can tell you, Sarah, for every one person you find me that may be abusing the system, I can find you 10 that are contributing towards the system, whether it's in our health service, in our education service, in our transport service, in our police service, in wealth creation, in job creation. And I say in a respectful way, Sarah, please don't feel I'm patronising you. Just check and challenge the source of information, because I think, yes, not everything is perfect. We shouldn't pretend everything's perfect. Sometimes there's been, communities changed overnight because of the pace of migration. But to make sweeping generalisations that all brown people are bad, or this, this word swamp, which is in itself, loaded, I think it's not helpful.
Let's get back to the phones.
OK, the next caller is from Maidenhead, not quite as far as Manchester, but it's Sophia. Hey, Sophia.
Hi, Sadiq. Thank you for taking my question.
Pleasure.
My question is actually more of a concern, and it's about the lack of action that is being taken by the police when crimes are being reported. Now, just to give you a little bit of background about this, I was recently on the Elizabeth line and I was racially abused. I was able to film the incident and load it onto a social media platform, trying to, hopefully do a bit of detective work and find out who they are. And obviously, I reported it to the British Transport Police. And while they did acknowledge the incident and gave me a crime reference number, it then went silent. And actually, 4 days after, I received a letter in the post saying that the case was closed. And yesterday, a major media platform, I'm not sure if I can say the names, they actually printed the article on their website. It was also on the news. And by pure magic, just like that, I got a telephone call from the British Transport Police. And all of a sudden, they've actually identified who these people were on the tube. They actually looked at the evidence, which I had provided a few days after the incident, where I'd already found out who they were. And I made it very, very easy for them. I did a lot of detective work. I couldn't have done more. But it's just such a shame that it had to take a video to go viral, the BBC to get involved. And, what hope is there for people who are in worse situations and who haven't got these resources? And, people feel like there's no point in reporting anything because they feel like nothing's going to come from it. And, what can you do to restore that faith? And why aren't the police acting faster? And why did it take, like I said, the support of the BBC for somebody to finally look at my case and actually resolve it in an instant?
There's a lot to get through there. I need to just report what the British Transport Police have said this morning, which is that it is not accurate to suggest the case was reopened following contact from the BBC. It was reopened the next day when the victim contacted police again, that's you, Sophia, to say she wanted to make a formal statement and supplied a video recording of the incident. This provided additional lines of inquiries to investigate, and these inquiries are being actively progressed in order to identify and apprehend those responsible as soon as possible. There were no available officers in the vicinity available to attend as they were dealing with a serious collision at the time of the incident. But carry on. No, you can respond to that.
Sorry, James. I would have to challenge that because I received a letter in black and white on the 11th of September saying that it was closed. So that statement doesn't even make sense.
Well,
have you seen the clip? Do you know the story? So Sophia Chowdhury, to give her full name, was racially abused on an Elizabeth line train before, young people using the P word repeatedly. And she was. There's two elements to the story. One is obviously the event that happened. The second bit is, by Sophia's account, a lot of adults present were far from helpful. And in fact, one of them a question why she was even bothered or why she was even taking the trouble to try and record the culprits in this case. And then, of course, the reported failure of the authorities to respond satisfactorily. Well,
firstly, Sophia, I'm really sorry for your experience on public transport. Can I explain to those of your listeners who aren't ethnic minorities or religious minorities the impact name-calling has? Because it's not just name-calling. It goes to who you are. it's your identity and it's intrinsic to who you are. And the P word is when you receive it, it is upsetting, it is chilling, it makes you ask questions about whether you should be using public transport. It sometimes makes you scared and cowers you, so you stay at home and don't go out. And when people hear about Sophia's story, it has the feeling of ripples of hatred. And so there will be people listening to this who will be scared by Sophia's experience because they are different. And so, you know, people on the one hand may say it's just name calling, like the bystander you mentioned, but I don't think they've experienced the feeling it has when you are called names. And that's one of the reasons why 40 years ago the Public Order Act passed a law which has a section that deals with threatening, abusive or insulting behaviour because of the impact on the receiver. And there's a number of issues that Sophia's question arises. Firstly, Sophia, I will look into this with the British Transport Police to find out what exactly happened. Secondly, you know, I think decent citizens should be active bystanders. Whether somebody's been, harassed sexually or abused racially, I think there is a civic duty, as long as it doesn't, endanger yourself, to be an active bystander. That could be recording it for others. That could be stopping the behaviour of the individuals involved, or being an ally to somebody like Sophia. And the third point is action's got to be taken. One of the reasons why we've encouraged reporting is there's an under-reporting. Now, the problem with Sophia's case is, one of the problems is, people say in the future, what's the point of reporting it? Because when Sophia reported it, no action was taken. And that under-reporting means that we're not measuring progress or things going backwards. And so that's why it's important for me to look into what happened in Sophia's case. But just to say, this isn't just name-calling, and it's not trivial. It isn't trivial because Sophia and people like her will be scared now to use public transport. And public transport should be what it says in the tin, transport for the public.
Has it changed the way you interact with the world around you, Sophia?
I was very paranoid for a week after the incident. You know, if I was crossing the road and there's a group of children there, I would avoid it. And I actually haven't been back on the tube until a couple of days ago. And even that, I basically had to orchestrate so that it wouldn't be in school time. So yeah, the first week I was very shaky, but it's all right, you know, I've bounced back. However, I am worried about if that was somebody else who was more vulnerable, somebody like my mum. What if she was there on the tube? What would have happened then? Because like I said, I can look after myself, but it's just not right that people are getting away with this. It's being normalised. And you know, the main question here was, people feel like there's no point reporting things because nothing comes from it. And, you know, how can you restore faith that these things will be taken seriously, worked with urgency?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why your case is so important, you see, because it's a case study on what happens when people do report it and the lack of action. That's one of the reasons. I just don't know the details, but I will follow up with British Transport Police, because we are actually got a campaign to encourage people to report any criminality on public transport, whether it's racial abuse or violence against women and girls or any sort of criminal behaviour. And, you know, it's just awful what happened.
Sophia, let me know if he doesn't do that, all right? And then I'll hold his feet to the fire next time he's in this studio. Before you go, Sadiq Khan, should Tony Blair be the governor of Gaza?
I saw this coming in, and I don't know whether it's true or not. I mean, the key thing is I'm not sure any Western person should be the governor of Gaza. That Gaza should be run by Palestinians. My concern is there may be no Gaza left for anybody to run the way things are going. 2.1 million Palestinians displaced. Basic supplies not getting in. Children dying of malnutrition. Children amputees, 20,000 children killed, more than 65,000 people killed. Who the governor is, who runs Gaza at the moment, is a moot point.
So, Sadiq Khan, many thanks. Covered a lot of ground. Some troubling themes emerging about the portrayal of our city, our home, a place that we both love.
No, I think the point I'd say, I'd implore not just Londoners, but those who visit London regularly, is, talk up our city. We're the capital city. I think it's unpatriotic, without merit, to be criticising our capital city. And we can have conversations about housing policy or transport policies or about, crime, but to accept the proposition that Sharia law is coming to London, to accept the proposition put forward by President Trump is one we should reject. And I think it's the patriotic thing to do, because we've got merit and justification to defend our capital city.
Many thanks indeed. You have been listening to Speak to Sadiq on LBC with me, James O'Brien. The time now is just... And will you apologise to your colleagues on my behalf for keeping you longer than they wanted me to?
Oh, they're okay, don't worry.
Okay, it's 10:44.